بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ربنا لك الحمد والشكر كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك منك لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم اجعله خالصا لوجهك الكريم لا ابتغاء سمعته ولا شهرة ولا رياء. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. MashaAllah, so nice to see you all here. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept, Qabbalullah, inshaAllah. May Allah accept from you and us this Amal Mubarak, inshaAllah. In Australia, because we don't have, if you're living back in some Muslim majority country, you can go to any time, you will find some gurus, you will find some ulama, you will find some people doing something. And we don't have that opportunity here. So whenever there is a gathering, be it here or elsewhere, try to take advantage because of not just the benefits in terms of learning about the Seera, but also the rahmah from Allah Azza wa Jalla, the maghfirah from Allah Ta'ala. These are Mubarak gatherings which Allah Ta'ala loves. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us about those gatherings in many hadith. And we spoke about those many times before. And the least reward, one of the rewards that you will get, inshaAllah Ta'ala, we will all get, inshaAllah Ta'ala, at the end of this gathering, is that Allah Ta'ala says to the angel, أُشْهِدُكُمْ بِأَنِّي قَدْ غَفَرْتُ لَهُمْ. Hadith Qudsi. That Allah Ta'ala will say to the angels after the gathering is finished and after the Malaika have ascended to Allah Azza wa Jal, because now you will be surrounded with the Malaika. And the Malaika, they will make saf upon saf, row upon row upon row. We can't see them, but they're there. Until the gathering is finished, and they فَيَصْعَدُونَ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, they go back to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah asks them different questions. Where were you? What did the people want? What is it that they don't want? And so on. And then at the end of the conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says to them, أُشْهِدُكُمْ بِأَنِّي قَدْ غَفَرْتُ لَهُمْ. I make you witness, O Malaika, I have forgiven them. Alhamdulillah ala hadhi ni'mah. The army of Rasulullah in Uhud was defeated, and 70 of the best men became shuhada, including Hamza radiallahu anhu. And we saw how there was an exchange of words between Abu Sufyan and the Sahaba. And then after Abu Sufyan and the armies of Mecca, they withdrew and they went back. And about 73 kilometers from Medina towards Mecca, 73 kilometers, they stayed in a place that was called Hamra al-Asad. They camped there. Rasulullah ﷺ, meanwhile, buried the shuhada. And now if you go to Medina, if you go for Hajj or you go for Umrah, usually they take you for a ziyarah to Shuhada Uhud, the Shuhada, the martyrs of Uhud. And you see where they are buried. For those who haven't been, you see where they are buried. You don't see whose grave is who. They are left anonymous. And then it is caged in with a big wall, and you'll find at the entry or at the front in big billboards written the dua of visiting the cemetery in Arabic, in English, in Urdu, and in other languages. You can see, you can stand outside and look inside and you see a plain field. Some graves have some boundaries, like small rocks, but there are no names. So the one who doesn't know looks inside, doesn't know whose grave is who. But some ulama there and the people who are aware, they know what's what. One thing about the shuhada, and may Allah Azza wa Jalla give us shahada in His path, inshallah ta'ala, is that the earth does not eat the body of the shaheed or the Anbiya alayhi sallam. Everybody else, usually, the worms of the earth will eat their bodies. Right? Except a very small portion of the tail end, they call it the tailbone, that does not get eaten up according to the hadith of Rasulullah, and there are different interpretations for that. We won't get into this. But the bodies of the shuhada and the Siddiqeen, the Salihin, usually the earth does not eat their bodies. And I was saying to one brother today, recently I was listening to a sheikh who was a student of, if anybody knew Sheikh Kishk rahmatullah alayhi, the Egyptian famous Sheikh Kishk rahmatullah alayhi. And the sheikh who was telling the story was his student. Sheikh Kishk was an Egyptian sheikh. He was blind here, but not blind in the heart. And he used to give fiery khutbahs. Often after every khutbah, the police would be waiting for him and they would take him to jail and so on. But the streets of the masjid that he would give khutbah and the roofs would be packed. Very fiery. And a man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was listening to Sheikh Daddu once say, Sheikh Daddu came, he said a few years ago, before when Sheikh Kishk was alive, rahmatullah alayhi, after Sheikh Daddu said, I finished doing tawaf, and I noticed Sheikh Kishk sitting, finished his tawaf also about to make dua. So Sheikh Daddu would have been young. He said, and I sat next to him, and I could hear him make dua, and my body shivered. Sha'arra jasmi. My body shivered from his dua, and I knew it was a dua that is accepted. So this Sheikh says, 13 years after Sheikh Kishk died, rahmatullah alayhi, his brother died. And so they wanted to bury him in the same place. And he said, we went and opened the grave of Sheikh Kishk so that we can put the brother next to him or there. And he said, to my surprise, and he said, I'm an eyewitness, I'm shaheed, I'm Allah's witness. He says, when we opened the body, the first thing I noticed, there wasn't a bad smell, but it was a beautiful smell. And then the second thing I noticed, that the cloth, the kafan that he was wrapped in, was not worn out after 13 years. And his body was intact. It is as if it was 13 years ago. This is true, we believe that. Because this is what Allah Ta'ala has promised He would do, and this is one of the karamat, one of the honors that Allah Ta'ala will give a person who was close to Allah Azza wa Jalla. So those shuhada Uhud, the same thing. And there were instances when it flooded, and sometimes they had to relocate some of those graves. And the narrations will say that when they tried to relocate some of the graves of shuhada of Uhud, they found the bodies were still the same. So after Rasulullah buried the Shuhada of Uhud, he went back to Medina, and you can imagine the situation. Wounded, some of them severely wounded, some of them are unable to walk, aside from the psychological impact that the war had on them. 70 of the best men died, including Hamza, radiallahu anhu, Mus'ab ibn Umayr, radiallahu anhu, and others. And Rasulullah's forehead was cut, his cheek was cut, his tooth was broken, he was bleeding profusely. He was bleeding so much that when they prayed Salat al-Dhuhr after the battle, he had to sit down. So can you imagine the situation? They went back to Medina, and some of them went back to their houses. Just when they went to their houses, and just when they wanted to sit and look after their wounds, the news came to Rasulullah that the army of Abu Sufyan and the people of Makkah, army of Makkah have camped in Hamra al-Asad, 73 kilometers, and they are thinking about attacking again, because they felt their victory was not decisive. Meaning the victory was not complete, because they wanted to kill Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they did not. They wanted to kill Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, they did not. They wanted to kill Umar radiallahu anhu, and they did not. So though they won the battle, but they felt that it wasn't decisive. So the best thing they said we will do is maybe gather ourselves, gather momentum, and plan again to go and attack. As soon as Rasulullah heard this, he announced that everybody, only those who were in the battle with us in Uhud, come out now, come out now, and we are going back. How do you do that? Today you finish work, you go home super tired, the masjid is closed, it's salah, and you say, I can't make it, I'm so tired. Right? The people who are connected with Allah, seriously connected with Allah, they find raha in ibadah. They literally find the comfort in worshipping Allah, even though it seems difficult. And there are so many stories about this. One of the great Mauritanian ulama, one of the shuyukh of the Sheikh Dadu, one of his shuyukh, who was of his relations, he says he was 90 years old, he's a great alim, he's about 90 years old and can't walk usually, and very fragile and very weak, until he stands in salah. He says when he stands in salah, he could do 1 hour in salah, standing, as if he's got no problems. And it isn't until he says, Salaamu Alaikum wa rahmatullah, Salaamu Alaikum, that he collapses. And you hear many stories like this. Anyhow, so Rasulullah's instructions were very clear. Only those who were involved in Uhud come out now. They sam'an wa ta'a. We listen and obey, and immediately Rasulullah went and camped not too far away from where the Meccans were camped. It's a psychological warfare. And Rasulullah gave instructions for each to light as many fires as possible. Now their numbers were small. They were injured, they were tired, they were hungry, they were scared, some of them. But Rasulullah wanted to send a message clear and loud. We are not tired. We are not scared. We are not hungry. We are still strong, and we are ready to fight. When the army of Abu Sufyan and his people heard that Rasulullah and the Sahaba, the same army has come back, and when they would look and see so many fires lit at night, they said, oh my God, Muhammad and his army have come much stronger than they were, and they are much bigger. We better not proceed with fighting, enough this time, and we will go back. And there are many important lessons in this. And that is number one. Number one is that you never give up. At-tawakkul, we said many times, Al-Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahmatullah alayhi, said, At-tawakkul amalun wa amal. Tawakkul on Allah is amal. You do your best and you hope in Allah. Really, you do your best. And you know the nafs is our worst enemy. How many times you said to yourself, you're at home, you wanted to come to the masjid, but the nafs is pulling you. Oh, I'm so tired, I can't do it. But the minute you take that step outside of the door, what happens? It's all gone. The minute you make that move, the minute you make that azima, the minute you
you make the effort and you trust in Allah Ta'ala. You move. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala makes it easier and makes it possible. And also Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wants to teach the mu'mineen, the believers, that regardless of how much you are in pain, the other party could be more in pain than you are. And you trust in Allah Azza wa Jalla, and victory never comes because of your strength and because of your might. For la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, there is no might and there is no power except in Allah Ta'ala. Many a times we think it is because of our strength, because of our intelligence, because of our greatness that we achieve. But Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala teaches us always otherwise. You try your best, no doubt. You take all the halal asbab. But ultimately, Allah Ta'ala is the one who does. You can try your best, but ultimately, whatever Allah Ta'ala decides will happen. And so when the army of Abu Sufyan retreated back or went back to Mecca, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came back to Medina. Few important things also happened in the Battle of Uhud that I want to bring to your attention. And that is the involvement of some of the women in the Battle of Uhud and why they were involved. We know that there were several women who were involved in the Battle of Uhud, including Aisha radiallahu anha, Sulaym radiallahu anha, Amara radiallahu anha, and others. They were there. And Anas radiallahu anhu, in a hadith that is narrated in Bukhari, in Kitab al-Jihad, the chapter on Jihad, Anas radiallahu anhu says, لما كان يوم أحد انهزم الناس عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. When it was the day of Uhud, people dispersed away from Rasulullah because of the attack. ولقد رأيت عائشة بنت أبي بكر رضي الله عنه وأم سليم وإنهما لمشمرتان أرى خدم سوقهن تنقزان القرن. He said, and I could see, Anas says, and I could see Aisha radiallahu anha and Sulaym. They were running around with the water containers and the water bottles. تنقلان القرب إلى متونهما. They were going, taking these water bottles, the leather water, the skin leather water containers, and going and giving the needy, the wounded, water. In other narrations, كانوا يداووا الجرحى. They used to also treat the wounded. Anas bin Malik also رضي الله عنه says كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يغزو بأم سليم ونسوة من الأنصار معه إذا غزا فيسقين الماء ويداوين الجرحى. Anas also narrates in a hadith that is in Muslim, in Kitab al-Jihad al-Siyar, Anas رضي الله عنه said, when Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم used to go into a battlefield, he would take Sulaym and other women from the Ansar so that they can distribute the water and give the wounded water, and also they were nurses. They were used to nurse. And there are many hadith about this, the fact that they were involved not for fighting. Because the fiqhi point on this issue is that jihad is only for men and not women. The jihad al-qital. Jihad of fighting is only upon men and not women. And women are not required to be fighting in the battlefield. Unless your land is being invaded and attacked, then jihad becomes fard on every man and woman at that time, if they are able. But they're not required to go and fight outside. And so the fact that these women were with them, they were for a certain purpose and because of a need. If there was no need for these women to be in the battlefield, they would not be there. But there was a need. Secondly, they were covered, and the men who were there, they were not immoral people. They were men of the highest moral character, the best of the best. So nobody should understand by the fact that some of the women were there in the battlefield nursing the wounded and giving the wounded water as an open license for women to be involved just in anything. And the opposite is true. But rather there is that restriction. And the fact they weren't expected to fight. But again, because of a certain need, there was one instance there where Umara radiallahu anha, Musayba al-Mazaniya, she fought. Because what happened in Uhud, when the people started dispersing, she said, I saw people coming and attacking Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so she took up a sword. And this is narrated by her granddaughter, who heard it from her mother, who heard it from her own. She said, my mother told us that her mother was there. And she fought and she took the sword and defended Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was wounded 13 wounds in the Battle of Uhud. She said, the granddaughter, my mother said, when she died eventually, Umara, and we washed her body, we found in her body 13 wounds which she received in the Battle of Uhud. Allahu Akbar. That was the zeal. I mean, if you were there and Rasulullah was being attacked, you would hope you will be the one who will be defending him. Right? Rasulullah is not with us now. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But his teachings is with us. His name is with us. And that's why the ulama say the way we can defend Rasulullah today, whether men or women or children, number one is to love him more than we love ourselves and our families. And number two, to follow his teachings and his sunnah. And number three, to invite people to his deen, to the deen. And number four, when he is abused or ridiculed, as has happened in certain Western countries in their cartoons of Rasulullah, that we use the best possible and most effective means to defend him sallallahu. And I underline the most possible and effective means to defend him sallallahu. If Umara radiallahu anha in the battlefield was willing to sacrifice herself for Rasulullah sallallahu and was wounded 13 wounds, the least we can do is uphold his sunnah alayhi salatu and defend him as needed. And one of the greatest ways of defending Rasulullah is to live by his example. To live by his example. Not only outside the house, but also inside the house. Aisha radiallahu anha was asked, كيف كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يصنع في بيته? How was Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم in his house? قالت كان في خدمة أهله. He used to serve his family. Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم. And this is an important point in regarding to a bigger topic, which I started talking about at Marian Masjid in the khutbah today, and maybe we'll do the same here some other time. Is that we are living in very difficult circumstances, especially if you have children growing up in Australia. The challenges are huge. The challenges to do with afkar, the ideologies that are coming, and the af'al and the actions of people, whether it's homosexuality, transgenderism, LGBTQI, atheism, irreligiousness, you name it, secularism. And our young people are being bombarded by this from every direction. Don't make it worse for them inside the house. When they come home, the house should be a safe environment. The house is a place where they need to feel there is love and affection and care. And the best way, coming back to the question of defending Rasulullah, the best way is to follow his example inside the house. Have always open channels of communication with your children. Try to have dialogue in the house. If they ask a difficult and a sensitive question, don't shut them down. Try to engage in a dialogue. If you don't have answer, simply say, I don't know the answer to this, but I can why don't we research it together, or why don't we ask somebody who knows and let's find an answer together. The minute you shut down the channels of communication between you and children, they will go to look for somebody else for answers, or keep them open. And that is why we say the best way to defend Rasulullah nowadays is to live his example, to revive his example in our houses, outside of our houses, inshallah ta'ala. And not to think because we weren't with him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, at the time like Umara, she defended him with the sword, 13 cuts in her body. Today what can we do? Well, we can do so much. We can do so much. First, learn about him, alayhi wasallam, learn his sunnah, and try to bring it into your life first and foremost. And never say, some people say, oh, but it's only a sunnah, do I have to do it? And one alim responded to that, he said, whose sunnah are you talking about? The sunnah of Rasulullah, khayrul bashar, the best of the best. And also, if you don't want that dini explanation, let's give you a psychological explanation. Psychologically, human beings, we like to imitate and follow. We want to copy somebody. That's natural. You need to copy somebody. If it's not some famous soccer player, or a wrestler, or a kickboxer, or an actor, or an actress, it has to be somebody. Somebody needs to follow somebody. Children try to imitate their parents initially, then the parents grow up, they will try to look for an idol. If we don't take Rasulullah as that example, Uswatun Hasana, the role model, then you will need to fill your life with some other model. And he is the role model, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in everything we do. We also saw how Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib radiallahu anha, the daughter of Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib radiallahu anha, reacted and behaved when she came to the battlefield and her brother Hamza had died. And when Rasulullah saw Safiya radiallahu anha coming to the battlefield, he sent one Sahaba and he said, go and stop her, don't let her come near the body of Hamza, because his body was mutilated. And he didn't want Safiya radiallahu anha to see what had happened to the body of her brother. And when that particular Sahabi came to her to stop her, he says, Rasulullah says, well, you should not come near. She said, move away, I need to see him. And she went radiallahu anha and saw the body of her brother. Zubair ibn Awam is the one who told her, stay away, you can't bear the sight. She says, Khalli sabili, leave me alone. And she actually pushed him aside and she went to see her brother Hamza radiallahu anhu. But also Hamna bint Jahsh radiallahu anha, she was also there in the battlefield. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam finished burying the Sahaba and he went back to Medina, on the way he saw حمنا بن جحش رضي الله عنها فقال لها رسول الله يا حمنا احتسبي. He says to her, as soon as he saw her, he says essentially, be patient and know that Allah will reward you. قالت من يا رسول الله, why يا رسول الله, you telling me this? قال أخاك عبد الله بن جحش, he died. He says, your brother Abdullah bin Jahsh, he became shaheed. فقالت إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. She said, إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. واستغفرت له, and she said, may Allah forgive him and may Allah give him Jannah. ثم قال لها رسول الله احتسبي. Then again he said to her, be patient and know that Allah will reward you. She said, why ya Rasulullah? What? Who else? قال خالك حمزة بن عبد المطلب. Your uncle Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib also has become shaheed. Her brother is shaheed. Her uncle is shaheed. قالت إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. To Allah we belong and to Allah return. واستغفرت لها, and she made dua for him. ثم قال احتسبي. Then a third time he said to her, be patient and know that Allah will reward you. She said, what for? Who now? فقال زوجك مصعب بن عمير. Your husband Mus'ab bin Umayr also died. Became shaheed. At that point she cried. And it's interesting, it shows the connection she had with the husband. And sometimes it's more difficult, especially when there is that strong relationship between husband and wife and one loses the other. It becomes very, very difficult. But in this particular case, when she was asked, why did you cry so much when you heard that Mus'ab bin Umair died, your husband? She says, because I was concerned for the orphan children he will leave behind. So Rasulullah made dua for her, and eventually she married Talha bin Ubaidillah radiallahu anhu, and from him she had 2 children, Muhammad and Imran. So Allah Ta'ala compensated her. But imagine losing 3 men in your family. And every time she was told that, she said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and this is the response of a mu'min when a musibah comes upon them. Any musibah, any calamity, any challenge that comes upon a Muslim, the first response should be Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah belong, and to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala will take. But also there is another woman, they call her Al-Mar'a Dinariya, a woman who was in Bani Dinar, from the tribe of Bani Dinar, and thus her name was Dinariya. Her husband, her brother, and her father were also with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So when they saw her, and they said to her, sorry for your loss, your brother, your husband, your brother and your father passed away. What was her first response? قالت فما فعل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. How is Rasulullah? They just told her husband, her brother and her father became shaheed. Her first response, what did Rasulullah do? قال خيرا يا أم فلان. He is okay. Rasulullah is okay, but she can't see him yet. هو بحمد الله كما تحبين. He is alhamdulillah good as you would like to see him. He is good. قالت أرونيه أن أنظر إليه. I want to see him. I want to see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It is not enough that you have told me he's okay. I want to see him. فأشير لها إليه. Then they said, look, he's right there, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's right there. So when she looked and she saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, حتى إذا رأته قالت كل مصيبة بعدك أجل. She said, after seeing you, Rasulullah, every musibah becomes easy. Musibah is a calamity. In the Arabic word, when we say musibah, it's a disaster, it's a calamity. And this is not just any calamity. Husband, father, brother, the 3 main men in the house. She is told they have become shaheed. Her first response, how is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? He's okay. No, I want to see him. Where is he? There is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And as soon as she saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, she said, oh Rasulullah, every musibah, every disaster, every calamity, every hardship after seeing you becomes easy. It becomes easy. Women in Islam have always played a very important role in deen. And we mustn't think that deen spreads only with the efforts of men. And one of the biggest responsibilities of the sisters, and the fact that we have sisters and they are listening, is to make sure there is deen in the house. There is a culture today where women feel in the only way they can be seen as important is that if they have some career outside of the house. And there is nothing wrong with having a job outside of the house. There is nothing in deen that says a woman cannot work in a decent work. There is nothing wrong. But it is wrong if you have children and they need you. The biggest and most important priority for mothers, and it's a noble position. Motherhood today has become such motherhood. in today's modern, Western, secular, post-colonialist society, motherhood is not as important as being a CEO of a company. You know, when you go to conferences and you go to seminars, nobody introduces them, and she's the mother of 5 great children. Nobody says that anymore. You're CEO of this and that, and the manager of this and that, and the profile of this and that. Okay, what are the children? Motherhood, from an Islamic perspective, is one of the most important and most sacred duties in the world. And a mother gives to her child more than milk. And that is why the ulama say that even before you conceive of the child in your womb, you need to go and learn about what does it mean to be a mother. And the father needs to learn what does it mean to be a father. And this comes back to the earlier point I was saying about the challenges we are meeting today. And I say to you, my brothers and sisters, more important than learning how to drive a car is learning how to become parent. When you and I wanted to drive a car, as I said today in the khutbah in Mariam, when we wanted to learn a car, are you learning how to drive a car now or not yet? Not yet. You will be soon. What do you do when you learn to drive a car? They give you a book. You have to read the book. You have to study the book. You have to do the test. If you fail the test, you have to do it again. You need to know what does the giveaway sign mean, it says. You need to know what does the stop sign means. You need to know when you're stopping and somebody coming on the right, who gives way to whom. You have to learn all of that. That's not enough. Then you have to do some training. If your father doesn't teach you, or your brother, which usually happens, then you find a teaching instructor and you pay them some money and you take some lessons. And then you go and do the test, and if you pass, they give you the L, and then you have to clock the hours. I don't know how many hours it is now. And then if you do all these practice run, then they give you the P, and then you have to wait for a year or 2 years, I don't remember now, then they give you open license to drive a car. But to have a child, we feel we don't need to do any of this. Why? It's only a child. I don't need to learn about motherhood. I don't need to learn about fatherhood. I don't need to know about tarbiyah. I don't need to know about how to bring up my children. I don't need to. It happens naturally. Does it? So when we say that women played a very important role in Islam, it doesn't just mean out of the house. In the houses also. And by that I don't mean that the man goes home and sits ijr ala ijr, as they say, one cross-legged and sits there like the king of the house and gives orders. No. This is not the way of Rasulullah. كان في خدمة أهله. He was serving in his house. I always say the relationship between man and woman in Islam is competitive, it's complementary, not competitive. In the West, it's competitive. It's you complement each other. You complement each other. We helped each other, especially in Australia when your mother is not with you, maybe your grandmother is not with you, your father is not here, your aunties are not here. None of those people who usually help you bring up your child are not here. So you become the auntie and the uncle and the grandfather and the grandmother. And so there is no point in conflict in the house. There is no need for it. No need for tension. It doesn't help anybody. Compromise. You have to sometimes just let go. وَالتَّجَاهُ الْعِلْمُ الْمَفْقُودُ. And the ulama say to play dumb is a knowledge that is absent today. Sometimes you just have to ignore. You don't have, marriage is not black and white. do this, no, you do this, my right is this, your right is this. It's give and take. You're not married, so listen carefully, because when you get married, you need to know this stuff. And if you're married, Allah ain't. If you're married, may Allah help you, try to do your best. It's never too late. Men and women all together, they play an important role in raising the deen of Allah. You want proof? Ibrahim alayhi salam, Hajar, Ismail, the whole family. The whole family. Ibrahim Nabi, Allah Ta'ala says, take your wife and your son, put them in Mecca. There was no Kaaba, there was no buildings, there was nothing. Completely arid. Leave them and go. Through her sabr, through her patience, through her mujahada, through her sa'i, and then through the sacrifice of both, Allah Ta'ala gives her the greatest gift which we continue to enjoy until today. Zamzam, and more important than Zamzam, Allah gave her Muhammad through Ismail. The efforts and the sacrifices of the husband, the wife, and the child. The baby Ismail was crying because he didn't have anything to eat and drink, until Allah sent him Jibreel alayhi salam and dug Zamzam. Rasulullah, you see, it wasn't Aisha was making the effort, Khadija was making the effort, the women were making the effort, everybody was sacrificing. The minute the community feels the responsibility is one and not the other, for when it comes to deen, it'll become a problem. We both need to carry, men and women need to carry the responsibility. If the man is busy, maybe the husband is in the masjid or working outside or trying to earn a livelihood, who's going to look after the children? Let's be practical. So they said, no, today we need a bigger house. So we'll get a mortgage. And to pay the mortgage, both the husband and the wife need to work. And if the husband and the wife need to work, then we put the children in the childcare. When they are ripe, formative years, they'll call them. In the formative years, the children need the mother. And this is what the studies all are showing today. And I said in the khutbah today at Marine, and I'll repeat it here. A sister called me last week. She said to me, I don't know what to do. I said, what's the matter? She said, my daughter, 4 years old. Everybody's listening to this? 4 years old. And she goes to our child care. And she comes home and she says, Mom, I don't know if I'm a boy or a girl. Mom, my friend has 2 mothers. Why I have 1 mother? 4 years old. And they are shoving this stuff, teaching that in these childcares. She said, I didn't know what to do. Everything I know about Islam disappeared, evaporated. I couldn't. How do you engage with a 4-year-old? You never expected this argument. Maybe in the past the 4-year-old will come and say, Mom, is there Allah? Does Allah exist? How do I know? They ask these innocent questions. Who expected that a time will come when your 4-year-old daughter will come home and says, I don't know if I'm a boy or a girl. And she said, how did she find this out? Because that's what she's hearing. That's what she's hearing in the childcare. So the sister says to me, and a very, very good sister, and a very, very good family, mashallah. They're trying their best, but they didn't expect it'll come from that corner. She said, what do I do? How do I even begin to discuss this with my daughter? I said, you don't even discuss it with her. She won't even understand. But what you do, you take her out of that place immediately. The environment has a huge impact. Imam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah says, the heart of a child is like a sponge. For people who are married, they don't have children yet, this is very important for you. Don't wait till it's too late. And the relationship between husband and wife has to be complementary, has to be gentle, there has to be mutual consent, there has to be discussion, there has to be give and take. There may be a certain period of time where it's all right for the lady to be working, no problems with that. But then when the children are about to be born, then the priorities must change. And you need to discuss these things. Don't feel that you have to force. Forcing never does anything. ما وجد لي في شيء إلا زانه. Whenever gentleness and leniency is found in anything, it makes it beautiful. وما نزع من شيء إلا شانه. And whenever gentleness and leniency is removed from anything, it makes it ugly. And Rasulullah used to consult, he used to talk, there was always channels of communication. Are you tired? You want us to finish? Okay. Coming back to the point, so I said to the sister, take her out of that place immediately. And if you have to make that extra sacrifice to stay with her in the house, so be it. Motherhood in the Islamic worldview is one of the greatest things a woman can do. And the reward for that is huge. It is huge. And the word for womb in Arabic is rahim, which we mentioned before. And rahim and rahmah come from the same root word. And rahim is from rahmah, mercy. And the rahim is connected to arsh of Allah, the arsh of ar-Rahman. That is the link. And that's why the ulama say a woman can reach levels of spirituality and qurb ila Allah, closeness to Allah, quicker than a man does. Because of her softness, her soft nature, she has more spiritual nature than a man does. And that needs to be capitalized on and invested in the children. Right? When a child sees in the house that the mother or the father, all they're busy talking is backbiting and slandering, and all they're talking about is what this woman did and what that woman did, and she bought this dress and I need a better dress, and he bought this car and I need a better car. What do you think the child, if he's listening only to that? A child is like a sponge, absorbs whatever it sees around it and hears around it. Sometimes your child is 5 years old, sitting in the corner, playing with his own toys, and you and your wife are talking in the kitchen. You think he's not listening. He's in the kitchen, he's in the other corner, playing with the toys. And you said something, you think he's not listening. And the next morning he repeats exactly what you said. Absorbs. When we hear, therefore, these stories about women who were sacrificing themselves for the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, it teaches us that the responsibility of deen is on the shoulders of men and women, more so in this country. And the priority for you and me, before anything else, is your children. If it means a smaller house so that one person can work and the other person can look after the children, so be it. Don't wait for the moment when may Allah Ta'ala save your children and ours. Don't wait for the moment when your child is 15 or 16, as one sister called me a year and a half, 2 years ago, Muslim family, practicing Islam, hijab, Ramadan, etc. The boy goes to an Islamic school. One night, we got up, said, I'm not a Muslim anymore, and he walked outside the house. Don't wait for that moment. Because at that moment you will realize all the houses you have, and all the cars you have, and all the degrees that you have, and all the money that you have. Sahih? I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but I am an optimist, and I'm mutafa'il. I'm a person who has tafa'ul, an optimist, but I'm a realist. The truth is this: we need to open our eyes and prioritize properly. We become very happy when one brother or sister become Muslim, and we should be. But where are they? Where is the follow-up? Where are the other young brothers? Our young brothers and our young sisters, where are they? Alhamdulillah, you see some here, beautiful. Where is the rest? The basic adab of deen, respecting the parents. When we were growing up, we were told you don't even stare at your mother and father. Right? You don't even raise your voice at your mother and father. You don't even look at them in a way that is disrespectful. Allah said, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا uff. Don't even say uff to your parents. One brother said to me, he said, I went home and the police was at home. I said, why? He says, my son called the police for me. I said, why? He said, because my car was blocking his car in my driveway. يعني وصلت لها. The boy, the girl, they come home, you can't ask now, where have you been? Why you come today? I'm free, don't ask. I'm free. It's a free country. There's no freedom is ever absolute. Freedom is never absolute. Freedom is, if you know, it's all nonsense. They say it's a free country. Oh no, it's a free country. Let's not follow the traffic laws. Easy. Turn the traffic laws lights off. Free country. No, you know what will happen if the traffic lights are switched off? Chaos. Because humans cannot operate without laws and guidelines. And if we need laws and guidelines to drive on the road, we need laws and guidelines to drive our lives. And the minute you turn these laws and the guidelines off, chaos will happen, as we see. Few quick points. I'm sorry I'm taking too much of your time. And just so that we can move on. Few quick lessons also from Uhud, in addition to what we have said. So just again, to come back, we need to have, as a community, we need to be thinking about having more workshops for parents, those who are yet to be married and those who are married, workshops on how to be a parent. Let's think together about how we can do these things, inshallah. Quickly, a few things. First, from some of the lessons of Uhud. Al-Nasr, ibtida'an wa intiha'an biyadillahi ta'ala. Victory is always with Allah Azza wa Jalla. وَلَيْسَ مُلْكًا لِأَحَدٍ مِنَ الْخَلْقِ. Victory, nobody owns it. Only Allah owns it. And Allah decides when to give it, how to give it, and why to give it. Like rizq. All you can do is try your best and take all the necessary means, and whatever comes next, you say Alhamdulillah. Rizq. Quick point on rizq. You know, has anyone owned chickens before? I owned 13 chickens when I was in the hills, and the fox came and ate them all, left me one chicken. يعني جزاه الله خير, they left me one chicken. Thank you. The chicken rizq is like this. So when you want to feed the chickens in the morning, you have a certain quantity. You put it in a container. You can feed the chickens in 2 ways. Either you put the container in one place and they all come to it. Less effort for the chicken. Or you can scatter it. And the chicken will be running and screaming and fighting each other, and they picking them. More effort, more energy, and they're very, chickens are very funny creatures. They are really, really funny. They've got a character of their own. Right? But the question is, has the amount of rizq that was given to them increased or decreased, or was it the same? It's the same. But one came at once, and other was scattered. At the end of the day, the quantity was the same. This is like your rizq and my rizq. Some people, Allah gives it to them, here, take it. Other people have to work hard for it, that's fine. at the end of the day, you will not leave this dunya without eating the last grain of rice which Allah has written for you. When they were excavating some graveyard, cemetery, they found a skull. And between the teeth of the skull was a grain of rice. So the person who saw it said, Subhanallah, it wasn't part of his rizq. It wasn't his rizq. Sahih? It wasn't meant to be. That grain of rice between the teeth wasn't his. If it was, he would have swallowed it. So rizq is coming. Don't sacrifice deen for rizq. Don't sacrifice your children for rizq. فأجملوا في الطلب. إن الله قسم بينكم أرزاقكم كما قسم بينكم أخلاقكم فأجملوا في الطلب. Allah has already distributed your rizq. فأجملوا في الطلب يعني seek your rizq beautifully. يعني in the halal way, meaning not at the expense of your deen, not at the expense of the deen of your children, not the expense of the deen of your community. Right, Brother Ahmed? بارك الله فيكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. وجزاكم الله خير. Forgive us for the extra time we have taken. إن شاء الله على سيدنا محمد.